Alright guys, Lqgend. I hope you're doing good and enjoying your day so far. What a tournament we have been treated to here in Dallas. This time last year, Major 1 in Madrid was a Game 7, Round 11 decider. This year, we go Game 7. We don't quite go to the Round 11 that many thought that we might well get to. What a tournament of storyline today. It's Gentlemates that walk away with the championship in remarkable fashion. OpTic Texas, after an incredible run, they eventually just about fall short. So many talking points that we're going to get into over the coming minutes. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. We're going to start though with what happened in challenges today. Scrap turns up to the venue across the road from the main venue where the challenges stuff was happening. It was in time for the grand finals. Bush, they took down a Huntsman. There's been lots of talk about the Huntsman team and making it to the Sunday. I think was a pretty big deal for some of those players. Lots of talk about Neum, Renegade, potential options for other teams in a roster mania, which is certainly going to start happening over these next couple of days. Then the F. team with Mythics and Co. They went down to Rock Esports, the Saudi guys, in the winners final. Bush then took them down, and then it was a grand final between the Saudi boys and Bush Gaming. This was a remarkable story in challenges, really, because the Saudi Arabian players, they play from Saudi Arabia, obviously. Their ping is not ideal for a lot of the practice. There's been lots of questions and even drama in recent weeks online as to whether they were really going to back up some of their online playings on LAN. But it's extremely cool for the scene. Bush, first of all, what a phenomenal job. Jersey Cherry and those gentlemen. It's been a phenomenal storyline to watch all weekends. So much heart I think they showed to make the losers bracket run that they did to get to the grand final. But once they got there, it was Kicks, right? We know Kicks from Falcons last year. And Dahum, he also spent his time on that roster. They have leveled up big time. And obviously, coming back into the Pro League, that's a different conversation. But I don't think many people were expecting them to turn up to LAN and play as well as they did. You will also note there's two fellas called Dahum on the team. Asim was explaining to me, they both have the same quite long first name. Dahum is like the shortened version. So they both call themselves that. One of them has an X, one of them doesn't. So it must be kind of confusing for the other team trying to call those guys out. They must have a solution there, even for their own team, I'd imagine. But it was a 4-1 in the end. Bush did win map 4. To give themselves a chance of making the reverse sweep happen, but Bush go down in second place. Loads of key storylines coming out of this Challengers event, but yeah, what a weekend, and just what a story for Challengers recently. And it's not just about the Bush, right? The Saudi guys making the run that they did to win it was an incredible story in and of itself, with serious implications as to what this could mean for the league in the relatively near future. Bush, though, look, they have had quite the weekends, and they're going to celebrate at least in the only way that they know how, you might argue. Spart says, GG's for those guys, we lost 4-1. Beyond disappointed. I'm sure that they felt like it was doable, right? I'm sure they would have expected to win the grand finals. Shout out Steve Vortex as well. Vortex, long-time European player, pro, and then he basically ran the challenger scene in Europe for a long time, but never got a victory internationally. He's now coaching those Saudi guys, and at his first time of asking, gets the victory. So remarkable stories and challenges. But let's talk about what was happening in the Pro League. Now, Drazah and FaZe, they played G2. And after game 1, it felt like, oh my god, you can't be serious. G2 really just are their bogey team. It doesn't matter what. SGL drops 40 map 1 as they win the Blackheart Tar Point after a pretty big comeback. FaZe, though, they take the rest of the series. Drazah says it's just Mamba on Sunday, because there was all sorts of trash talk here. We know that Mamba's been talking a fair bit of trash when he beat them earlier in the tournament. This time it was FaZe's turn to talk some trash back. Simp actually stood up and put the middle finger up and said, UFN amateurs, and he said it a couple of, I think he said UFN amateur, probably talking at Mamba specifically. So, yeah, anyway, it was some good trash talk on the main stage. They just have to keep the stages like this. The majors, they're just better when the stages are facing one another. You get stuff like this basically every single series, and we'll see more of that in a second. But FaZe, they do get the win. Some serious pictures that will be saved to hard drives, I'm sure, in the coming days. But remarkably enough, it was a Neslo to get them over the line. They won the overload pretty handily. They won both search and destroys, and that was FaZe through to top 3 in the tournament. Tippable run out of G2 Minnesota for sure. Tough series for Skies, especially given that they won both hard points. You know, he had a 0.7 at the end of it. But still, usually there's a team that somewhat surprises and exceeds expectations the first tournament. G2 was arguably that team this time around. Can they keep up this kind of top 4 level-ish going into online again? I guess we'll see. But I was impressed by G2 this weekend. I think they played some quality stuff. And they could have easily beaten FaZe again in that series. Then OpTic arrived onto the stage. This was a very interesting series, OpTic Gentlemates. I was expecting it to be a very competitive series. I was talking with a few people and they were like, yeah, Gentlemates is, at least in scrims, probably the better team. But obviously when you've got a crowd like that, you've got the drums in the building, you know, breakers can break, and there are questions on whether they would be able to replicate that kind of expectation when they got to LAN. And also we know that OpTic are very difficult to stop in a LAN environment with this roster. Gentlemates had a big early lead, game 1. It wasn't huge, but they started map 1 very well. And then OpTic really came to play. They dominated the rest of that map. Game 2, Search and Destroy, was not even a competition at all. And at this point, it felt like, wow, OpTic are really just going to run away with this whole thing with no questions asked. They're just unbeatable, it seems, on LAN. Dashy had a nice little 1v1 against Neptune here with the pistol. Shotzzy and Dashy went 18-2 combined on the second map on the Scar. Then they went to an exposure, and that was GG. OpTic get the victory there as well. I know that the Breaking Point stats briefly had Shotzzy at a 0.06, which Aches was definitely talking about. But even Formal was watching this, and the Formal watch parties are always spectacular. And he was like, damn, these guys had checked out. Ghosty, or, well, Ghost in the background, but Envoy's gone for the fist bump or something with Simp, and they made a bit of a hash of it, right? So all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, mentally they're mega compromised, and Gentlemates just get crushed in the series. Neptune has a 0.7, Shotzzy has a 1.4. It was, you know, everyone played very well on that series on the OpTic side. The Scar was an absolute demolition job. Dashy literally had an infinity KD. He went 8-0. Huke had no kills, but didn't matter. So it was just a remarkable map to see Gentlemates just full collapse, to be honest, right? And that was what we were witnessing. Gentlemates were clearly far better than they showed on the stage there. But it just felt like the pressure, the moment, was getting the better of them. And it has been a talking point with Neptune, of course, on that team. Ghosty's record in finals, not particularly great, as we know, at least historically. His first couple of years didn't do particularly well in those situations. And, well, Neptune was part of that surge team from last year with Abuzah, with 0-4. Their finals record was not great. So, you know, these are one of the key questions. Crowd cheese, drum cheese, whatever, how is it going to happen? And, well, we got our answer, it seems anyway, in that series. So Gentlemates then had to play FaZe. There was this Neptune spot. Again, there's probably other spots like this in the game as well. We saw the drama with the Kismet one the other day that the Falcons guys pulled out, and then you had a kind of similar story here with what Neptune was up to on this map 1. This, however, was an insane bag of series. So FaZe take the game 1. Game 2, Gentlemates bounce back. You can see Ghosty has a few words here for 0-4 close to the camera. I will say the venue is a very interesting one in the way that it's set up, because the player areas upstairs, there's basically one elevator that takes you between them. So there would often be series where, and we saw this a couple of times yesterday, I think when OpTic went to play their series against G2, maybe it was a different one, but the players getting ready for their game, they'd leave the player areas and they'd go to the same elevator and they'd go down in the same elevator at the same time for the game they're going to play against each other. So it must be kind of awkward in that environment where that you're stuck right next to the guys that you're about to try and beat. It's not usually like that at events, because it's usually connected in a different way, and the players can more easily get from the player areas to where they're actually got to be to play the game. And a kind of similar thing here, right? When they're walking off the stage, they're sharing the same pieces of real estate. So you get opportunities for a few words to be exchanged. But this was the talking point of, well, not just the match and the map, but arguably of the day in terms of whether this is going to be the play of the season. What an unbelievable moment this was to witness on LAN. Like, the energy in the building with Gentlemates down 5-2, bringing the comeback. Neptune clutches a 1v2 in the previous round, and then finds himself in a 1 versus 3 situation here, back against the wall, as FaZe look destined to take it. 0-4 jumps over and dies. Drazah gets absolutely slammed for a disgusting 1 versus 3 that gets them to the round 11, and a round 11 that they eventually go on to win in remarkable fashion, really. I mean, even the first blood here, FaZe got first blood on Envoy, and then they still collapsed the round. Even Gentlemates messed up the use of their streak, and FaZe still won it. yeah, Ghosty was telling them they choked across the stage. That was, yeah, they broke bad. Like, that was a bad moment for FaZe. A humiliating loss in many respects to let Neptune do that to you round after round, and then to bottle the round 11 in the way that they did as well, to keep their dreams alive was just unbelievable. It was great to see a match this competitive. Of course, it gave Gentlemate some serious momentum as well as they tried to continue that losers bracket run. Drazah says great resilience out of the squad, because to be fair, great run from FaZe. To go from losers round 1 after losing to G2 to make the run through the losers bracket all the way here was an impressive result. Eventually they were probably expected to run out of steam, but yeah, wow, they choked that Colossus bad. It doesn't seem like they're reading too deep into it. Simp says, you know, lots of the year left, will definitely get better. But yeah, wow, what a round and what a play out of Neptune, especially after against OpTic. He had such a tough series early on, and it's like, oh, is Neptune, you know, is he really that guy? And then when they need him most, he delivers. Just insane performance. Neptune has a 1.06 overall, but that does not tell the story, really, of that final map. Simp tried his absolute utmost on the other side of things, but it was not enough. And yeah, a great series out of Simp again. The guy is doing it all. FaZe, very impressive, I think, overall, the run that they made. They could easily have won this map, and it would have been a very different story. Who knows how that grand finals would have gone. OpTic versus FaZe would have been fascinating to see that on LAN for the first time this season. But here we go then into the grand final. I think it's just worth quickly mentioning here before we discuss the final itself. OpTic 3-0 Gentlemates in the winners finals. Back in the day, that would mean it was a clear-cut 2 best-of-5s or something like that necessary to win the finals. There is a debate to be had, I think, especially again, given how comfortably OpTic beat them in the winners finals. And look, were Gentlemates the best team in the finals? Yes, but still, right, it leaves a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth that OpTic have no advantage, right? Okay, I know they have veto advantage technically, although I will say the vetoes in this grand final did not really seem to favour OpTic as far as I was concerned. But look, it was a banger series. I just think that still think the conversation on advantage for the winners bracket still needs to be had, and I think a day like today is to a certain extent worthy of making that conversation happen. But look, to not take anything away from Gentlemate's performance, because what a tournament from them. I picked them as my team I thought were going to win coming into it. They delivered. Sib had a phenomenal tournament. All of those guys played extremely well. Discuss that in the coming minutes. And look, they actually played at the level that we know that they can, right? The winners finals was an anomaly of a Gentlemate's performance. They carried that momentum from beating FaZe in that unbelievable fashion. I mean, to be down 5-2 map 5, for Neptune to make those plays, to bring the comeback and then to go on to win the tournament, you couldn't write some of this stuff. Especially because they did it again in the grand finals. They were down 5-2 on the raid. It looked nigh on certain that OpTic were going to tie up the series. But no, Gentlemates bring it back. Now, this round, there was a lot of talk about this round. We know that every so often Huke will make a play, which is like, what was he thinking there? And, well, this was one of them, really. Formal was very critical, and for understandable reasons. Look, there were other rounds they also probably should have closed out here, but this was the round 11. Neptune gets blood onto Shotzzy. There's 30 seconds left, but OpTic have to bomb down and plenty of time. Well, not that much time for Gentlemates to defuse it, right? I don't really know why Huke is looking this way, right? There's 25 seconds to go. Is it likely anyone's coming from basketball at this point? Like, not really. Maybe there's a world where someone jumps out of money, but yeah, doubtful. And he kind of lets Envoy find the gap, effectively. There was some reminiscence here of maybe what happened with Huke and Kismet, of course, famously back in Modern Warfare 2. Kismet finds the gap on Zarqwa, HyDra Electric. So, no, there's a bit of that going on. Again, all of these maps were critical as the tournament went on. OpTic, though, did win a huge overload. This went to overtime. They got over the line. The key talking point at this point in the series was, first of all, Sib was on smoke. He had a phenomenal series. But Dashy, it was the other side of the story. That was the key battle going into the grand finals many were talking about. Dashy versus Sib, who would come out on top when it matters. And Sib had a great map here. Dashy was having an awful series until this map, and this was such a crucial map for OpTic because they went down early on. It was a tight game. Dashy was double negative again, and it looked like, oh my god, Dashy's having an awful series here in the grand finals. You know, what are OpTic going to do about it? And then Dashy went from having genuinely a terrible map to one of the best takeovers that we have seen from middle to the end of this map. OpTic tie up the series. It's 2-2. Then it's an exposure, search and destroy, then an exposure overload. Now, the exposure search, that goes the way of Gentlemates. The exposure overload, a map that Gentlemates really like. OpTic took this one. Great takeover plays out of Shotzzy. And we go, as you couldn't write it, to yet another Game 7. They load up on Scar. There was some spots the Neptune was pulling out. I mean, look at this. Again, is he standing on top of the sign? Is it a pixel walk? Is it an unintended line of sight? These are conversations that may need to be had following this tournament. But Dashy made an incredible play in this round. This is a 2 versus 3. Wow, this was a Game 7 tweak fest, right? Like, there were some questionable plays happening this map, but it's expected, right? It's a huge tournament, 2 massive teams. Dashy made a phenomenal play in this round to give them a chance. He gets the first kill onto Neptune, tweaks Envoy out, right? Envoy goes the wrong way. That was a mistake. But these were the crucial rounds of the map. So Gentlemates go up 5-2. It's then 5-3, and you're thinking, okay, you can't be serious. We're not doing another 5-2 comeback again. And then Mercules, the absolute wonder kid that he is. I mean, look, Mercules is still the best player in this game. He doesn't make any mistakes. The guy is unbelievable. And this map, yes, they probably shouldn't have smoked the bomb, but you couldn't write it. Merc gets the kill. He's in a 1v1 with like 5 seconds on the clock. He gets pushed. He wins the gunfight. He sends it to 5-4. It looks like it's almost destined to happen, especially when in the very next round, they have a big advantage. This was a 4v2 they had at this moment. 4v2 looked like the bomb was going to be going down. Again, I'm not really sure what OpTic... I mean, Huke had a difficult day, to say the very least. Does he need to hop up here with his teammates? Sure. Do they want to double challenge? Sure. Should he just have gone and planted the bomb? Yes. He dies. Shotzzy trades onto Neptune. 2v1. The problem is the time's against them here. And Ghosty wins a huge fight onto Shotzzy up top. And now it's Ghosty who's in the advantage. 12 seconds left. Dashy's got to make a call. The bomb's on top of that box. So it's not easy for Dashy to go and get it. And now he's got to play ring around the rosy with Ghosty. Ghosty chooses right, Dashy chooses wrong, and it's OpTic who falls short in what was tragic fashion and somewhat, I guess, underwhelming fashion, because it looked like we were going to get another banger round 11. We didn't. But look, congratulations to Gentlemates. What a performance. All of these guys getting that win over the line after what was a difficult year for Sib last time out. Neptune, I think I'm especially happy for. This is his first tournament win, right? After all those second places last year, the roster they've put together that was considered to have an extremely high ceiling, but some potential problems in that roster, they have delivered when it mattered at the first event. Have they peaked too early? Will they be able to keep this up for the rest of the season? These are the questions that will come. But look, what a tournament, what a grand finals that we have had. Sib drops a 1.3 over the series. Huke, as I say, I'm sure there'll be talk about that later on today and going into the future. But I think in many respects it would be difficult to have written quite a better start to the season than this. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.